What's up, guys? Rick here with your betting and one and done preview for this week's Honda Classic. Looking to continue that momentum off of Justin Thomas last week. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about outright picks. We're going to go through some head-to-head matchups, give a one and done update, and talk about your options in those formats as well. If you have not signed up for either William Hill, BetMGM, or a BetRivers account yet, the promotions are pretty crazy for March Madness. You don't have to, you're getting a ton of free bets. You don't have to use them on golf. You don't have to use them on bets, but use them on whatever you want. But the offers are pretty insane right now. So go to RickRunGood.com/bets and see what the current offer is in your state. Also, there's going to be 2 live chats on Wednesday, the 3 p.m. Eastern time live chat on the Rick Run Good YouTube channel. That's our regular live chat, question and answer, ownership, whatever else you want to talk about for the Honda Classic. And then 8:15 p.m. Eastern time is our Jock Market Power Hour. It is stock market DFS. There's going to be, I think, a lot of money to be made in this field at this event this week because it kind of breeds a bit of volatility. We'll talk more about that in just a second. But yeah, it's going to be a great week. I hope you enjoy. Let's jump into the tournament predictor. So if you're new to the channel, if you're new to the RickRunGood.com tools, this is the tournament predictor, the tournament simulator. It has run simulations for this event 1,000 times. I've been messing with a bit of the volatility. You know, as this continues to evolve, you guys know I love to evolve the tools, back test them, make improvements constantly. And one of the things I've been wanting to add and I've started to mess with is volatility here. And a course like PGA National or a lot of these Florida courses in general are very volatile. What did we see at TPC Sawgrass last week? 9 of the 17 most expensive golfers on DraftKings missed the cut. That's a lot of studs missing the cut. You know, results there are pretty all over the place. And that's not uncommon in Florida with all the water lurking in places and you can rack up a big number in a hurry. So I've been kind of messing with the volatility. So I'll kind of point out the ones that I think are being impacted the most by that little volatility ad that I've put in here. But the simulation gives Daniel Berger the best chance of winning this golf tournament about 9.6% of the time. Is that bettable? Maybe. It's a fair number. There's a slight positive expected value there. What his 11.5 or his 10.5 to 1 odds would imply are that he's going to win this golf tournament about 8.7% of the time. I have him winning it about 9.6% of the time. So yes, there is a positive expected value there. It is very small. I wouldn't be sprinting there, but if you wanted to bet Daniel Berger, that'd be fine. Now, the caveat to this whole thing is, starting to get rumblings that Daniel Berger is playing through a rib injury and played through a rib injury last week, the Players' Championship, and he played great. He got an MRI on Monday. We don't know the results of that MRI because these guys are independent contractors. We don't know anything about that. But he has a press conference scheduled for Wednesday at the Honda Classic, and I'm hoping we get a bit more clarity on his situation for this week. Now, that might impact us in one and done spots where I was probably just going to be willing to run out Daniel Berger. Now I have a little bit of pause. So we'll talk about that in a second, but keep in mind we've got to kind of parse through what we find out on Wednesday from Daniel Berger. So that if he doesn't end up playing or he doesn't play well, I think the vast majority of the win equity is going to go to Sungjae Im. And I think that these two guys kind of stand alone at the top. I think there's a pretty significant drop off. The simulator kind of illustrates that. You know, it's a 2% drop off from Berger to Im, another 2% from Sungjae to Shane Lowry, who is the third highest winning percentage in the simulation. So I think these two very clearly stand alone. We can look at Sungjae's recent form, and what I always like to talk about is paths to victory. And let me break down the paths of victory for the top 2 golfers in this field. So I'm going to the Holy Grail here for Daniel Berger, and I'm only showing you his win at the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am and last week at the Players Championship. That's all I'm showing you. He played one event in between there. He played fine. But here's what I'm looking at. The metrics from Pebble Beach are almost identical to what he did at TPC Sawgrass last week. At Pebble Beach, he gained 2.4 strokes off the tee. He gained 2.6 at Sawgrass. He gained 4.6 on approach at Pebble Beach, 3.4 at TPC Sawgrass. Around the green, he gained 1.9 at Pebble Beach Pro-Am. He gained 3.1 at TPC Sawgrass. The only difference is this column right here. The 3/4 of a stroke that he lost putting last week instead of gaining 2.5 at Pebble Beach and winning the golf tournament. That's the difference, right? So what I see here is a guy who is laying the blueprint for victory, right? He is very close. It's the same thing we talked about Justin Thomas last week. We said here, the blueprint is there with his irons. The blueprint is there with his putter. If he fixes the off the tee game, which is one of the best parts of his game, he's going to contend. That's exactly what we saw. This is another guy laying the blueprint and laying the path. His path to victory is much wider than a lot of these guys. So that's Berger's path, notwithstanding any of the injuries and all that stuff. Let's go to Sungjae's path. Sungjae's path is pretty clear as well, or at least his floor is pretty strong. So here's Sungjae over the course of his, let's just look at his last 5 starts, all of them measured, which is great. He's been phenomenal off the tee. He's been gaining a ton of strokes off the tee. He's been gaining a ton of strokes putting. That's usually a concern for me, but that's kind of what Sungjae does. He's a really, really good putter. He's in the midst of a really good stretch right now. The thing that he needs to fix to increase his path to victory is the approach game. So he lost over 2 strokes on approach at Phoenix, at Workday, and at API, and he was about a 0 player in that category last week at TPC Sawgrass. Now, if he goes out and gains, call it 3 shots there, which is not uncommon. He's done that countless times in his career. That's his path to victory. So we only need these guys to kind of fix one little leak in their game for them to get back into the winner's circle. It's much more appealing than maybe some of the other guys on this list. Shane Lowry definitely gets an advantage from 2 things. Recent form helps Shane Lowry. The volatility factor helps Shane Lowry. Remember, he hasn't won and hasn't really played all that well since he won I guess it was the 2019 Open Championship. So I think that's a little bit of fool's gold on Shane Lowry at 5.5%. I do like his chances. I don't like him that much. I think he's more like a 3% chance guy, of winning guy. Sepp Straka, also a big gainer because he's such a volatile golfer. When you add in even more volatility into the model, he gets a big boost there. I don't think there's any way in the world he wins this 3% of the time, probably closer to 1%, maybe something like that. But the ones that stand out to me are, Ben On continues to be interesting, right? And I don't know if I showed this anywhere in a DFS preview, but we can talk about it right now. And we can just sort this by the Florida swing, I think, is what I've done before. So let's do this. Let's just take all the tournaments that are historically in this Florida swing. So it's going to be the Arnold Palmer, the Players Championship. It's going to be Valspar. It'll be the Honda. And the most recent Workday, WGC Workday. Okay, so here's the Florida swing for the last 6 years, and you start looking at guys that have played well. Well, Benny On has certainly played well, and he's done it great from tee to green as well. So he's 4th in this field in strokes gained tee to green over the metrics that I just put in. Sungjae Im is the best. Kevin Chappell is 2nd. Adam Scott, and then Benny On. Obviously, he had that blow up, 2 rounds at TPC Sawgrass. He makes an 11 on number 17, and it's kind of all she wrote, right? It's numbers can pile up in a big way, but even still with all of that, he has been better in Florida on Bermuda greens even than a lot of these guys. I mean, what's also crazy is, so in Florida, he's been great from tee to green at these courses. If you get rid of the Florida stuff and just look up his Bermuda putting numbers, he is right here, losing 1/4 of a stroke putting. That's better than most, right? I mean, he's normally a much bigger loser than that. So this is kind of an interesting week to run out Benny on, coming off of a really ugly missed cut. You can get him at 70-1. It's pretty interesting. And I think what we've seen, not only with the volatility that we've seen from this course, I think there should also be a bit of volatility in your betting card for this week, right? You know, I don't love betting the number 11-1 on Daniel Berger, especially with the news that we're getting, but I'm happy to kind of embrace some of these 70-1 guys. You know, the Ben Ons of the world, Brandon Wu, some of these guys that are deeper down the list. I'm much more willing to play them here because this event has kind of bred chaos. Keith Mitchell won this. He was like, I don't know, 500-1, 300-1, something like that. So it has bred a bit of chaos in the past that I think we should actually be embracing this week. Now, that's all the numbers. Anecdotally, I already have a bet in on Daniel Berger. I kind of scaled back some of my outrights. I am now much more concerned about that. I probably went with, I went with Berger. I'll get a bet in on Wu, on Brandon Wu. I will also consider. There was one more bet. Keegan Bradley. You know, okay, we talk a lot about the path for guys. Keegan's is always going to be the putter that is going to determine how far he goes. He's gained strokes putting in two events in a row. He's only done 3 in a row once since the start of 2015. So I don't know if we are in uncharted territory or he's figured something out. But you know, he's won before, right? He's won a playoff event. He won PGA Championship. So he's won before. I like guys that have that winning acumen to at least bank on if they are in contention on a Sunday. So my card is probably going to look like Berger, Keegan, Wu. That's probably about it. I don't know. Then I'll do a lot of top 10s and top 20s just because I think the outrights are pretty wild this week. Let's do some matchups before we jump into the one and done here. Let's see if I can find some. Okay, this one's pretty good. Rory Sabatini versus Patton Kizzire. And Kizzire has probably been better than most people want to give him credit for. And he's shown a bit of a ceiling this season. But I still have, okay, so this is pretty interesting. So if you go to the full, like I start at January 1st, 2020. If you go from that time frame, Sabatini wins this matchup about 60% of the time. He should be about minus 145. He's minus 120 on DraftKings. Maybe not close enough for a bet if you like that time frame, but look at it since the start of this season. It's a much different story. So let's go since 10-1. So I think that's going to tell a much different story, and I think we're going to flip this. Yeah, Kizzire now the favorite. Now he's 60% to win this. So if you prefer the shorter term than the longer term, you're getting a really good number on Patton Kizzire at the moment, who has played much better since the start of this season than Rory Sabatini has. So keep that in mind, certainly. This one's kind of interesting. So it's Furyk versus Stricker. Now, the problem is I'm only going to have their PGA Tour stuff, and these guys play a lot on the Champions Tour. See, I don't even know if I have. Yeah, I don't even have enough rounds on Stricker to qualify him for this. Yeah, so I can't even put this in. But what I imagine is going to happen is, let me see here. Yeah, I can get enough rounds for Stricker if I go back to the start of 2020. I mean, it's not a lot. Furyk wins this, 53% of the time. I do think what's interesting is, these guys, Furyk has played a lot on the Champions Tour since the fall. I think he's played 8 times. He's won twice. He's got like 5 top 10 finishes. He's made 4 cuts in a row on the PGA Tour. I think his last cut he made was Riviera, which is a difficult course. I would, my gut says the Furyk side of this is the side. Stricker flashed a little bit of good play recently, but it was like 1 round at a time or 2 rounds maybe. I'd be pretty comfortable rolling Furyk out in this spot. And then the only other one that I want to see how it is long term is Streelman against Zach Johnson, which to me, the Zach Johnson thing is huge red flags. All right, so I have Zach Johnson winning this 51% of the time. I'm nervous about that. And let me tell you why. And I'll pull up Zach Johnson on the Holy Grail here so we can see his numbers. Look at the last 2 weeks from Zach Johnson. He has lost a combined 10 strokes on approach in 2 weeks, and he's gained nearly 12 and a half strokes in 2 weeks. So let's just sort this by his best putting weeks in the last, let's call it 4 seasons, since the start of 2028. Those 2 weeks, the last 2 weeks, are his second and third best putting weeks ever in that stretch. So we're talking about, 250 tournaments? And number 2 and number 3 are the last 2 weeks. That is like, he's staring regression in the face. That will come back down to earth. And the problem is, if you are just a little bit off at PGA National with your irons, like he has been, you're in big trouble. And if he can't offset the bad iron play with 6 more strokes gained putting, which is unlikely for him to do again, I think it's going to be a short week for him. So my heart says this is the Streelman side. You got to bet the Streelman side here. I'm not confident in what Zach Johnson is doing at all at the moment. All right, Run Good one and done update. Remember, we started this at the beginning of the season, so we were much deeper in than a lot. In fact, this is the final event of segment 2. So segment 1 is in the books. Segment 2 ends at right now the Honda Classic, and then for the match play next week, we are going to do. We're going to start off segment 3. There were a lot of Colin Morikawa picks last week. There were a lot of John Rahm, Webb Simpson, Patrick Cantlay, Tommy Fleetwood picks. But those of us who had Justin Thomas made up a ton of ground in a big way. In fact, Chappie Chaps has moved to the lead with 9.6 million. Castor Joshua is in second. Ugri, Nash the Flash, and Graybo round out the top 5. That is a whole new name, a whole new set of names at the top because of the big prize pool. A lot of people got 0, and then those of us that got the 2.7 moved up in a big way. Your boy, Rick Run Good, is lurking in 16th with 7.4 million. So I certainly moved up in a big way, and hope to do so again this week. Now, this week I think is, last week there were a lot of leverage spots. There were a lot of great players in the field. This week I'm not as comfortable with it. If you would have asked me, a day ago, I probably would have just plugged Berger in here. Now, I've used Berger. I've used him. I've also used Sung Jae. You might not have. Now, I'm starting to cool on Berger if I'm hearing that, you've got the rib injury. The worst case scenario for Berger is that he plays, I don't know, into Friday, something happens, he gets an awkward lie, gets an awkward stance, and says, you know what, it's not worth it. I'm gonna withdraw and try to be better for the match play or something like that. That would be worst case scenario. And in a one and done situation, that is it's disaster to take a 0 from a guy who would be the favorite. The only other thing that you need to be aware of is what your rules are for alternates. So in the Run Good one and done, if he does not start the second round for any reason, you get to use your alternate. Some have different rules, if they start the first round, you're stuck with him. It depends on what your rules are. So know your rules if you're going to play Daniel Berger. And know that you might be taking on a bit more risk, but I do like that. Now, Sung Jae, I think very clearly is going to be the most popular, right? He's not only the defending champion, but this field is really top heavy. He is a guy who plays unbelievably well in Florida, obviously has won this event before. I laid out the blueprint for him earlier. If I had access to Sung Jae, and when I play in the so I played the $1,000, the high roller, I think it's called, on the Fantasy Golf Championships, I think is the website. I completely blanked on that. So there's 2 versions of that. There's the smaller one with 3,300 people, and then there's a $1,000 one with 33 people in it. I might just chalk it up and take Sung Jae and just say, you know what? I assume 25 of us are going to take Sung Jae. I don't really need to move up. It's not the end of there's no segments or anything like that. So I'm just trying to survive until next week. I'll probably end up taking Sung Jae. If you are trying to make a move, if you are trying to win segment 2 in the Run Good one and done, and there's 1 week left and you're close, you probably need to go a little bit further down the board. That's where I think Joaquin Niemann probably comes into play. Niemann, I expect to be one of the 3 most popular golfers for this week's one and done, just because he has, a ton of upside. People really like the kid. I like the kid. He's great. Played well at TPC Sawgrass, played well at Concession, had 2 runner-up finishes to start the year. This would be the guy that if I was trying to make a move, I'd probably go with Neiman. And if I really needed to go deeper than that, which I don't particularly want to, I wouldn't mind Gooch, honestly. I wouldn't mind Keegan. I wouldn't mind Brendan Steele. That's probably it. I mean, it's pretty ugly here. I'm going to stick with one of the top guys and kind of figure it out from there. But let me know what you're going to do. Everybody's situation is different. Tweet me at RickRunGood. Leave a comment below. I'll see you in the live chats on Wednesday. Best of luck this week. See ya.